There we go. All right. Welcome to Jodi Day. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Giving it to MLS today. Nicholas got his last night.
Yeah. Hold on. I need to turn something off here. Hi, everybody. I'm alive and still burping that freaking sardine paste from yesterday. Be right back.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, everybody. Did you forget how to stream? I did for a little bit. Actually, no. I had a really awesome video I put together for Nick. And then HBO decided to copyright claim it. So we were dealing with that for a minute and then just chit-chatting. Bypassing the flux rate to MLS and coming here instead. All right. Where's flux rating to? Is flux rating? Oh, look at that. Flux rated. Hey, Fluxians. Welcome all from Flux Land. We're letting Nicholas get something sorted out, I guess, before we get going. But hey, everybody, welcome. McKinley. Got Porcelain Thunder. We got the first chatter in both chats. Beep, boop, boop, arg, whatever this is. Beep, beep, boop, boop, arg. Yeah, beep, boop, boop, arg. We'll go with that one. It was the first in both of our chats. So welcome back for the live now.
Yay!
How you feeling today, Nick? Feeling good? How much did you raise yesterday, by the way?
$1,620 to Zachariah Anderson's defense fund.
I got to write that down. 1,600, 1,600. All right. So if we do 1,700 tonight, then I'll feel good.
And since it was 4 slots left on my wheel of regrets, we kind of came into agreement that you will do those.
Oh, is that how that works? Okay.
It's 4 shots and 1 hot sauce. So, and you have plenty of time to. I mean, say
I got the hot sauce.
Yeah, I mean, the hot sauce, and then I don't. If you have, some girly drinks there, you can do a shot of these or some Baileys maybe.
We got Costco parking lot romance. It's the wrong time to take a break with the fanny stuff. That's the video that I just posted that got copyright claimed, and I was going to play here, but I don't want to risk it. I did make a little video about that.
No, I didn't stream that Friday because I was completely spent. I had to have a few hours of sleep before my, but I turned it over to Legally Live McKinley to do that stream. So I hope she got loads of views on that one.
Hopefully she didn't boomer it too much. I watched part of the stream, but not all of it. I just tucked in and out.
Yeah. Fannie Willie's dad kind of threw her under the bus by saying, you didn't know about her relationship with Mr. Wade? No. So they did keep it a secret? Yes. While they both said, oh, no, we didn't try to keep it a secret. We just didn't tell anyone. And this while he was taking her to a cruise with his mom, but her dad never found out. It's yeah.
Did McKinley's dad come on? I'm gonna have to go back and watch now.
No, not McKinley's.
She said my dad came on.
Oh, her dad came on her stream. Nice.
Yeah.
Always fun to have family on. I still haven't done that because my family all kind of private.
Okay, he's an attorney too. That explains it.
Yeah.
That explains it.
Okay, nice.
But we have Jodi today. We have more angry little elf cross-examining the whore of the Me Too movement.
Yeah, the worst, least credible psychotherapist.
Yes, Alice, whatever her last name is. This is
La
the founder.
Toilette. La Toilette. I
La
don't know.
Toilette. We'll call her La Toilette. Alice La Toilette. Oh my God, I can't say it now. Toilette. La Toilette.
Somebody needs to get the membership started because I want to, if that is how Dave starts out with pronouncing names, I want to hear him pronounce more names. I don't mind losing in the gifted membership section as long as you force him to read out names.
So anyway, as I was saying, this is the start of the Me Too movement. All men are bad, all women are to be believed bullshit that we went through a few years back, and really, I guess, ended kind of with the Johnny Depp trial. So this is where it started. Yeah, and at least publicly, as far as what I've seen from like public trial work.
And when we started calling Jodi Arias the original Amber Heard, I did not know this La Toilette psychotherapist was actually I had no idea, but here we are.
Yeah, we didn't know this was coming up, and it's amazing though. This is where it started. I know. I do need some drinks in order to talk appropriately. I know it's Jodi Day, but I just we were going to talk a little bit. I have a whole video about, not a whole video, but a fun little video about Fanny, and I wasn't able to get to it or play it because YouTube is copyright claiming it.
Yeah.
There we go. Wait, this is on mine. Oh, it's super chat on my end. Wow. Thank you very much, John. Okay. Mike Hawk is really small.
Oh, no.
Nick said his last name and didn't understand. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
When you don't say it,
when Dave says this, I can hear what you're talking. Yeah. Okay. Now I get it.
And we'll clip that. There you go.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are just joining us and don't really know what this is, on Tuesdays and Saturdays at noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time, Nick and I dual stream the Jodi Arias-Trial. We are on day 42. We skipped a few days, thank God. But we usually go for about 2 hours on Saturdays. So get going with it. We play this at 1.25 speed with the closed captioning on, so hopefully everyone could follow along. He does talk really fast as it is. The angry little elf does. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. Oh, this will be interesting.
Making you faux? Making you faux? So that last night?
Fuck up that last. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I don't know. You can make it up to me by gifting memberships and super chat and give a thumbs up.
There we go. Let's see. Let me make sure our audio mics are set. Okay, cool. Let's go here.
Whatever the relationship may have been between her and Mr. Alexander, when was that she was vulnerable? Give me a date.
Mr. Martinez, there were a range of IMs. And if you're asking me to be a history major, I'm not a history major, but I read thousands of documents. And if you can refresh my recollection, I would be happy to tell you the dates.
You get to read them.
There you go. One was gifted to Lesko Farrell.
I can't believe Lesko Farrell's not a member already.
To TD, Lynn Dalton, PD Tiger 81, and Salty Dog 78. Thank you, John. Now, Brandon Lesko is a member of my second tier already, but this is his other account, I think. I don't know.
That's Farrell.
Oh, that's Farrell?
That's Farrell. She's been
Oh,
going
that's
around calling herself Let's Go Farrell.
Okay. I didn't know she was a mod at my channel.
Or maybe
I
it's
might
not.
have given her that during
Take it
one of
away.
my... What?
Take it away. Take away the wrench.
No.
This isn't Brandon. She says, yeah, no, it's Farrell.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. Well, I don't... Well, no. No, I like Farrell. She can keep her wrench. I just didn't remember gifting it to her.
Okay.
But you, as you sit here now, you can't tell us a time period
thank you,
when
John.
Miss Lay was vulnerable in her relationship with Mr.
Ms. Lay?
Alexander, correct?
Which part that she was vulnerable?
You're the one that said that she was vulnerable after reading either IMs or text messages, right?
I did.
And so, wouldn't it be important to know the time period when this was happening?
The time period that this was happening was in 2008. Those were the IMs or text messages I read were during the period
Yep,
of
she
time
still
between
testified.
2008 and toward the very end of Mr. Alexander's life. Those IMs stopped.
So you're positive that it was an IM message that we were talking
I
about?
told you I don't know a text from an IM. It was a written piece of paper that I looked at,
And in that written piece of paper,
or pieces, I should say.
how many pieces of paper did you look at to form just this particular opinion involving Shatanya Lane?
Mr. Martinez, I look at context. I don't have to remember exactly how many pieces of paper.
Okay, Jung, this lady is a psychologist. She's not
Nope.
a PhD.
She's a psychotherapist because she can't be a psychologist or psychiatrist because she only has a PhD.
Well, that's what I thought a psychologist was, or whatever.
Yeah.
She only
she's
has a PhD. She's not a doctor, and she is saying that Jodi was told certain words, and those words were terrorizing, and therefore Jodi was essentially a captive, and all kinds of bullshit. This is basically the groundwork for the
very
Me
abused
Too
because
movement.
of words, which means that everything she did back was in reaction to those words.
Yeah. So words are violent and all of this stuff.
Yeah. Terrorism, terrorist, everything, and
Paper to form an opinion. And
Well,
I think,
wouldn't it be important to know whether or not it's based on just one text message or it's based on a whole series, if you will, of documents involving these conversations? Wouldn't that be important for you to know?
it's based on more than one text message, I can
It's
tell you.
based on what?
It's based on more than one of, there were several sheets of paper. There were numerous sheets of paper that it was based on.
One of the things that you also testified to was that in these kinds of cases,
Yes, this is the
90%
Boone
of
type woman.
communication is nonverbal, correct?
My money is on that. This woman starts testifying for Boone.
I did not say that. I said that in communication, and this is
she
when
is
people
still
are
active.
looking at each.
She's still active. Jung, she did a whole thing on Snow White was a battered woman. The Disney Snow White, not the original story. The Disney Snow White was a battered
which
woman.
is
It was all kinds
interesting.
of insanity.
Yeah, which is interesting because the original Snow White from the Brothers Grimm story, that was an abused one, but the Disney one, that's just stupid.
Each other and speaking to each other, that there's a saying that 90% of communication is nonverbal. This is in face-to-face communication. I don't think we have research about what it's like now when people are doing things over the internet and Gmailing and that sort of thing.
You did say that 90% of all communication in the clinical world is
Nick, do you like to
nonverbal,
Gmail? I Gmail every
I
Saturday
answered
evening.
that. I said in face-to-face communication, that is the understanding. I did not talk about it in regard to written communication.
Didn't you say it's important to me because there's a thing in the, I don't know if it's all of the world, but in the clinical world, that 90% of all communication is nonverbal. That's what you said, right?
I explained how I meant that, Mr. Martinez.
Now, take a look at this exhibit. It's 595. Look at the top. You can read all of it. see whether or not those words came out of your mouth earlier in the proceedings.
I don't doubt that those words.
Ma'am, please take a look at it. Please do that.
It's 598.
598, I'm sorry.
Everything this woman says is bullshit.
Well, within this context, we're talking about Mr.
Ma'am,
Alexander.
Please read it and tell me when you're done, okay?
I-
Are you done?
I've read the entire paragraph.
Yes,
and
or
it's,
no? So that is a yes, correct?
I've just read that paragraph. Is that?
Just, if you want, read the paragraph or read the whole thing. And when you're done, let me know.
This woman has a hard time following directions.
Yeah, she doesn't like being directed because she she says she's been an expert done expert testimony before, but I doubt
All right,
this
then have it back.
context
Yes.
she's ever been in.
Isn't it true that in proceedings here in this courtroom, you said, it's important to me because there's a saying in that, I don't know if it's all over the world, but in the clinical world, that 90% of all communication is nonverbal. Did you say that?
That is out of context, Mr. Martinez.
Sir, ma'am, I'm not asking you about context. I'm asking you whether that's yes or no. Did you say it or not?
It's not a yes or no answer, Mr. Martinez. It's out of context and it's not representing what I said.
Judge, I move for the admission of Exhibit 598. I understand that I'll have to take the other part out.
Okay. Oh,
By the
by the
way,
way, are we doing the super chat for the fast forward thing today?
Oh, yeah, we can. Let's put that
Yeah.
up. If anyone is so interested, we will do $1, 1 minute, a super chat to skip. There's no rewinding. I'm not allowing Brandon to have that sort of authority. But also, I was going to say, after this, I am redirecting everyone over to Salvador Dali, where he's got some new stuff from the courthouse on the Mark Jensen case.
Yeah.
So
And,
everyone needs to go check it out.
And my serial killer Saturday isn't until later. So redirecting there is of no use because I have to set it up over at the Rumble studio. And I can't do that unless before this is finished.
And that's the one thing I hate about Rumble.
Yeah.
You can't schedule two things at the same time.
Mm. But as the potential is great, they just need to implement more things into it. I mean, I really like the rolling chat that I can have in that studio, which we can't have here. For some
Exhibit 598 is
odd
admitted
reason.
as redacted.
But this is the way you properly cross.
598.
Can I say that I see too many weak attorneys? Say the woman that was examining Fanny the other day.
Yeah.
She allowed her to push her around quite a bit. And but you see it a lot with other cases too, or even the Jennifer Crumbly case. There's a lot of weak attorneys on cross, and this guy is not weak. He is allowed to ask yes or no questions and expect a yes or no answer.
Yeah. What was good about her all over the place is that she hashed out a lot of information and all of the objections, and then the next lawyer to question her, they knew how to work around those objections. So that's the good part. If it was unintentional, I don't know, but the other lawyers for the defendants, they used it very well.
I mean, it could be somewhat of a benefit, but you don't want a hostile witness out of control on the stand. At the end of the day, that doesn't benefit you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying if I were, because I don't do that kind of work, but I would constantly have asked the judge, please tell this witness to control herself. Please tell this witness to not be hysteric. I mean, you can do those things to taunt the witness, but still doing it the right way.
Yeah, never let a moron or never stop a moron digging a hole. Yes, but There was a lot of things in there that didn't need. She seemed out of control, and you
Okay.
don't want a witness out of control.
So everybody's starting to add "let's go" to their name all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, everyone's got let's go.
The question is asked, why is that important to you, Ms. Laviolette? You see that?
Yes,
And then the answer is, it's important to me because there's a saying in the, I don't know if it's all of the world, but in the clinical world, that 80% of all communication is nonverbal. Did you say that, yes or no?
yes, I did.
And then there's a sentence that says, and that's one of the things that we're looking at is the communication apparently by Mr. Alexander, that although he says it's okay for her to date, and then it goes on, right?
Yes, and it is in the context of
No,
also
I'm just-
personal face-to-face communication between Mr. Alexander and Ms. Arias.
I know that's what you want to tell us, but in terms of Exhibit 598, it does say, I don't know of all the
Hey,
world, but in the
Jonathan.
clinical world, 90% of all communication is nonverbal. That's what it says, right?
Yes,
And if we are applying that to the conversation involving Titania Ray and to Mr. Alexander that you told us about,
So non-verbal communication is terrorism, is violence, can be violence anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so she's that's the most vague expression. It's like the Georgia RICO Act. Everything can be verbal or non-verbal.
So those women
And
at the
it's-
gym are justified getting mad at the guys looking at them. He was assaulting me with his eyes. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
What? This is where it started, right? This is the first I've heard of this nonsense.
Mm.
last Thursday, that would mean that you were 90% wrong because there was you weren't able to look at the nonverbal communication, were you?
that's quite an extrapolation, Mr. Martinez.
Is that yes or no?
That's no.
And in fact, it's important to look at what the people are doing, is what you're saying, the way their bodies are when they're saying things, right?
That's true in a face-to-face. You can't do the same thing when you've got written communication. But if the written communication is consistent over time between numerous parties, it's consistent. I don't know what else to say, Mr. Martinez.
But in communications where there are people talking, for example, in text messages, you would agree that you can't see their faces, right? You don't know what their faces look like, correct?
No,
No, you can? Or no, you can't? You can or can't?
Nick, do you think Jung has bought into this emotional violence?
Emotional violation versus legal. I mean, but you can't. I mean, I do agree to some extent that it exists, but she can testify to it because she never saw Travis Alexander. All she has is Jodi Arias' story and text messages and her journal. That's all she has. She can testify to 90. I mean, as she said there, 90% nonverbal. She can testify to the nonverbal thing because she doesn't have it. So it's a very yeah, that's kind of nonverbal communication.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was
but,
great. Yeah.
You have this thing with cold shoulder, the silent treatment, stuff like that. That are nonverbal communication as a punishment of sorts. Which
But is it violence?
exactly is it violence? I mean, differentiate violence and abuse. It
Well,
can be
this woman is-
abusive, but is it violence? I don't know. It depends on which word and which context. But in this context with this witness, she can't testify to it because she cannot testify to nonverbal communication when she doesn't have it in front of her. All she
I
has
can't
is
see
Jodi
their
Arias'
faces,
story.
no.
Sorry.
All
What was
she
that?
has is Jodi Arias' story. And
Yeah.
that's so one-sided. So in my opinion, she cannot testify to Travis Alexander's state of mind at all.
And
She
with
does.
regard to what the person may be doing at the time that they're sending this and how they're feeling, you wouldn't get the gist of that if you're just looking at the written word, correct?
You can get a lot from the written word.
What you're saying is that by just looking at a text message, ma'am, you can tell what an individual many years ago was feeling just by looking at a text message. This is what you're telling us, right?
What I'm telling you is that I'm looking in many, many text messages, many, many communications. That's what I had to go on. And when that is consistent, I feel like that is a pretty straightforward sort of situation.
Ultimately, what you're saying is that you are a human lie detector, right?
Gosh, I didn't think I was saying that, Mr. Martinez.
Well, you're telling us, for example, that just by looking at a communication with Shatanya Lee and Mr. Alexander, for example, you're saying they're telling each other the truth, right? You're assuming that they're telling each other the truth, right?
Doesn't focus well.
Based on many other communications. It's part of a
got a
context,
Lego,
Mr.
Nick.
Martinez. I've said that several times, and that's really what I mean, is I look at a context of behaviors. I don't look at an
You have me in
isolated
the palm of your
situation.
hand.
It's always about pattern when you're looking.
And when you say context of behaviors with regard to this as an example, Shatanya Lee and Mr. Alexander, what you're talking about is reading, right?
That I'm reading.
Yes,
Yes, I'm reading.
right. You're not observing them any other place other than what is in the printed word, right?
Yes.
And what you're doing is perhaps in your office or wherever is you're looking at this and you're saying, I'm going to pass judgment on what is going on in this particular conversation without talking to anybody that's involved, right?
I think you're mischaracterizing me.
Well, did you talk to Shatanya Lee?
No, but I, excuse me, I looked at, once again, Mr. Martinez, it's context. It's not this one conversation. I think that's important for people to hear, that it's about patterns and it's about context. It's not about one conversation with one person.
The point, ma'am, is this. With regard to what you may interpret as being vulnerable, could be meant as a joke by Ms. Lay, and you wouldn't know it because you're not privy to what was going on at exactly that time that it was going on and couldn't see the faces. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, she stopped communicating with him after he talked about joking about or whatever about suicide. Apparently,
Hey,
she
Aaron
took it in
Olivia.
a certain way and stopped communicating with him and was upset by it. So yes, part of what I'm looking at is her reaction and the fact that she stopped making communication and he continued.
She stopped communicating with him via text message, correct?
Correct.
You don't know if they called each other on the telephone, do you?
No, I don't.
You don't know what it was that they were saying on the telephone, if they in fact called each other, right?
I know that he
Yes or
pressed,
no?
I know that he pressed for communication via text and she did not communicate. That's what I know.
That's what you're saying, but you don't know whether or not she relented at some point and called him. You don't know that, right?
No, I don't, Mr. Martinez.
So you're just restricted by the written word as it applies to her, right?
Yes,
And with regard to Reagan, do you remember Reagan?
yes, I did.
And her last name is Housley, right?
Yes, it is.
How many items did you review with regard to her? Or was it just one or two?
No, it was more than one or two. One of them was 18 pages long. There were a number that were,
Who's Reagan?
I would guess that's one of Mr. Alexander's other flings.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Oh, by the
Long.
way, remember, folks, jump over to the other channel, give a
Oh,
thumbs
yes.
up, spend a few minutes over there so it registers with the YouTube algorithm, and then you can jump back. And because me and Dave are having a most likes, most super chats, most gifted memberships.
That's right.
Yeah. it's
So
a
far,
friendly-
Nick is winning on the gifted memberships, but that's to
Yep.
be expected right now with the state of my channel. But
still a win. Still a win.
I don't know who Reagan is. The Reagan sounds familiar, but I have no clue. So if somebody knows in chat. Everyone's like, Ronald Reagan? Ronald? I don't know. I don't know who Reagan is.
Maybe that's in one of these. We skipped a few days, so maybe she was in there somewhere.
Jung wants to
Hello.
know what everyone had for breakfast. She's making pancakes.
I
had lots of bacon.
I had a microwave pizza.
Gross.
Because I couldn't be bothered to make anything this morning.
And it's Swedish pizza on top of that. It's not even the good stuff.
And hello, Mr.
One of the
Gibbs.
things that you told us with regard to Reagan was that
Oh, there's a
she was also vulnerable, right?
yes,
Mr.
And that
Gibbs is
conversation took
here.
place on May 19th of 2008, right?
I would have to see the date. I don't know the date unless you show me the
Well,
communication.
in terms of benchmarking it, you read it pretty closely, didn't you?
I did. I read thousands of things.
I-
And if you'd like to show me that and recollect the date, I'd be happy to look at it.
I'm not asking you whether or not you read thousands of things. Can we agree that you read thousands of pages?
Yes,
All right, can we move on? And I'm asking you with regard to the date. Isn't it true that in this particular
Yeah,
email
because
or instant
we
message,
found
there's
out
a reference?
a few episodes ago, we found out that her Jodi's restitution to the families were quite low. So she sells her paintings all the time. Both me and Dave have one.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if she has $5 million. It's she can't spend it, right? So not very much of it anyway. She's not going on vacations or buying big homes. She's kind of stuck where she's at.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. And it'll go to someone else in her family when she's dead.
A time reference, isn't there?
approach.
I can't believe she's worth $5 million, though. Is that right?
Between 1 and 5 million. It's hard to estimate, I would assume.
What
Hello,
kind of
Mr.
weirdo would
Dingus.
have
And
her?
I have a cat's asshole in my face again.
Better than on camera.
Yeah.
She could purchase cigarettes. I don't think they're allowed to smoke in prisons anymore.
My legs are not. Ow. No.
Commissary, yeah, but you can only buy so much makeup and
To get my
popcorn.
glasses.
She could bribe guards.
Ma'am, I'm going to mark
Oh, that's true.
an exhibit, and it has a highlighted portion of it.
You hear
I
that,
probably
Salvador?
need to get my glasses.
she has a lot of holes to fill. Oh,
Salvador says he's going to marry her now. Nice.
yeah.
Get that money. You just said it publicly, though, so that's probably not a good thing.
Take a look at exhibit 599 and the highlighted portion as to the date and the time. Just the highlighted portion.
Reagan was someone that TA dated. Okay, that's what we were thinking.
All right.
If I may have it back. Does that refresh your recollection as to the conversation involving Ms. Housley and Mr. Alexander, where she was vulnerable?
Good morning.
No, it does not. There were numerous about that same time. There were numerous conversations. So without looking directly at it, I would not be able to say this particular conversation happened on the 19th of May. No, I would not.
Well, you indicated to us, at least when you talked about their relationship, was that in terms of Ms. Housley, one of the things that you told us about her was that she was vulnerable, right?
She was anorexic.
You used the term vulnerable, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you also are now telling us what she said was that she was anorexic, right?
Oh, more. I was just going to type in the chat, Nick, but I'll just tell you, we could play that video at the end, and then if YouTube has an issue, we can just mute it.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, we'll do that. All right, I got a video that I'm going to play at the end of this stream.
I
It's
think you
great.
but I think you posted it on Twitter for some reason.
Oh, well, because I wanted to see if YouTube still had an issue with it.
Oh, okay.
Well, everyone's watching us here. They're not watching Twitter right now.
So you're telling us that in this message that you reviewed, one of the things that Ms. Housley said was that she was anorexic, correct?
I'm not saying on the 19th that she was saying that because I don't know what's in that communication, Mr.
With
Martinez,
regard to Ms. Housley, you just told us that she said that she was anorexic, right?
that she had been anorexic.
Right, that's what you just told us, right?
Yes,
This is part of the information that you used in telling us that she was vulnerable, right?
yes,
Additionally, as part of that, you also indicated to us that there was some issue about photographs, where Mr. Alexander was asking for photographs, right?
yes.
He wasn't asking for nudes, was he?
He was asking for close to naked, I believe.
He
Hello,
was asking
hello,
for what?
Wilhammer.
There was
Oh, yeah.
something about, he was asking for
Everybody go-
bikini shot.
Everybody
wasn't
go
asking
over
for
to
nudes, was he?
Wilhammer Media and subscribe to him. Because
Yes.
it's thanks to him, the audio here is so as good as it is. He's a magician when it comes to cleaning up audio in trials, and he has started to get an enormous amount of trials on his channel that everybody can look at. I mean,
Yeah,
he
there's
has so much, with good
He's also
audio.
been helping with the live stuff, too. He's got some live stuff
Mm.
from before. I don't know how much he's doing that now. I know he's got a day job. But, yeah, if you watch the trial and you're like, oh, audio was horrible, chances are Vielhammer has the whole trial and has fixed the audio so we can listen to it properly.
Yeah, and you need to subscribe to him so you can pass the threshold for monetization, so you actually can start earning some cash on all his work, because you can't. If you were to hire someone to clean up audio, we can't afford it. So
I know, I feel bad always asking Vielhammer.
Yeah,
can you? We found some hidden, like unheard secret testimony of Jodi Arias, but apparently it's going to be a lot of work to fix it up. So go subscribe so that Vielhammer can get monetized. So then he has an incentive to fix up this never before heard Jodi Arias audio.
Yeah,
or testimony rather.
That was my question.
With one, he was asking close to naked, and I don't remember if that was Reagan Housley or not.
So you
What
can't,
is close to
as you
naked?
sit here, when you say that he was asking for photographs, you can't tell us either way whether or not they were nudes or not, right?
They were definitely bikini.
So you're saying that they were bikini shots then?
Yes,
And that's based on what you read, right?
yes,
And with regard to that conversation, one of the things that came up was that the defendant was Mr. Alexander Stalker, right?
yes,
And with regard to that conversation, the events involving the stalking were discussed, yes or no?
yes.
yeah.
There were a couple
Yes
of
or
things.
no? Yes or no? They were
Yes.
discussed, weren't they?
Yes,
Previous,
So how can she come to that? She now knows she was regarded as a stalker, but still it's Mr. Alexander's fault. He's the abuser.
Yeah, because he asked for bikini pictures. Don't you know that that's just that's
From someone
abusive?
else. Yeah, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
when you were
David,
asked
I will
about
not
Ms.
send you
Wilmot about
bikini
that, you
pictures.
said, I
Stop
see no evidence whatsoever about stalking. Do you remember saying that?
I still don't.
I understand. So you still don't see that even though they are referenced in that message, right?
I don't see that based on Mr. Travis's behavior toward Ms. Arias. Stalking is a different ballgame, and it's a pattern of behavior, and it's a pattern that usually creates fear in the person that's being stalked. And so I don't see that with Mr. Alexander as he continues to connect with Ms. Arias.
Isn't it true that when you just said fear, isn't it true that Mr. Alexander was extremely fearful of the defendant based on what was said in that conversation?
I don't get that based on what I'm looking at. Once again, Mr. Martinez, you're asking me to look at something that's isolated as opposed to looking at the context of what we're talking about.
You had no problem telling us, for example, that Ms. Housley was anorexic, right?
Well, she said that.
Right. So you believed her, right?
I believed her because she talked about lots of body image
Right.
issues. Yeah.
Right. But you still believed what was being said. You never actually got a photograph of her, did you?
No, I did not.
You never saw any medical records involving her, right?
No, I did not.
You're basing it just on what was said in that message, right?
I'm not sure if it's just one message, but it was
Okay.
based on the communication between
Right.
Mr.
And in terms of the
No.
photographs in the bikini, when you said that Mr. Alexander wanted those photographs, his wanting is based on a statement that was made in those messages, right?
Correct.
And so you're believing what Mr. Alexander is saying with regard to his carnal desire.
Based on much information, Mr. Martinez, not based
Yeah,
on
Moni
one
Mani's got it.
communication.
She is an expert in nonviolent violence. That's a good way to put this. Nonviolent violence. This is where this all started.
With one woman.
But you are believing it, aren't you?
I
Yes.
am believing it.
Right. So you're taking what's in this instant message and you're believing, picking and choosing what to believe and what not to believe, right?
No.
Well, in this instant message, isn't it true that without telling me what is said, isn't it true that Mr. Alexander talks and uses the word stalking as it applies to the defendant?
Yes.
Isn't it true that he talks about certain aspects of that stalking behavior, right?
Yes.
In fact, in that instant message, there's even an indication from both parties that they believe the defendant is listening in or seeing what's going on, right?
No, there's an inference by Mr. Alexander toward Ms. Housley that she is listening in.
And in fact, isn't a message typed in as part of this conversation that's directed towards the defendant?
Yes.
So it's with the indication, at least, that they believe that she's listening in or monitoring that conversation, right?
Oh, let me answer.
Right?
I don't believe that. I believe, do you want to know what I believe or do you want me to?
No, I'm asking about what is going on there. Whether or not you believe it or not, we'll get to in a minute. Isn't it true that there is a written communication during the time that the two are involved in this instant messaging conversation of a message directed towards the defendant? Yes or no? Without telling us what it is.
Mr. Alexander is saying that to Ms. Housley. That's correct.
But isn't Ms. Housley, as a result of what Mr. Alexander said, also type something to the defendant? Doesn't she do that also?
He asks her to, yes.
Yes or no? She does type it though, right?
He asked her to and she complies, yes.
And he also types something there, right?
I'm not sure about that.
And as part of that same conversation that we're talking about, this is the one that you used in part to talk about the fact that he was flirtatious, right? In that conversation, right?
Once again, I would need to be refreshed if you would have me look. You're asking me about the same date, Mr. Martinez, and when you look at thousands of documents, a date is not going to stand out, and you've got that information. You've got it.
Let me mark it for you. It does have the date on top. Disregard it.
He's like wandering off and rambling. Jung, I did absolutely nothing with my wife for Valentine's Day, because if you need a special day to say I love you, take them out, do something with them, then you're doing it wrong from the beginning. So
Take a look at it.
I took my SO shopping.
And the issue is whether or not there's any indication.
She was definitely
in
surprised by
instant
that.
messaging about whether or not Mr. Alexander is being flirtatious.
Do you want me to read all 18 pages?
I want you to read it so that you familiarize yourself with it to the point that you can answer my question as to whether or
That's
not
our
Mr. Alexander
That
and
is
Ms. Gordon were
absolutely
being
correct.
flirtatious with each other.
The days after chocolates are getting cheap, then you can get some.
There you go. My wife says if I ever bought her flowers on Valentine's Day, she'd be so pissed at me. They're so stupid expensive. I never buy them. And the only reason we went out is because she was in transit going to my parents' house, and I was there, and we're like, oh, we'll just grab something to eat real quick. And we went to a little nothing restaurant and had a quick meal and left. But it was nothing special for Valentine's Day. It was something that we always do. But yeah, no, if you have one day and your lady makes a big deal about it, something's up. That's my opinion. Ladies, don't demand it on just one day. Insist on it every day. Yeah, your holidays are materialistic AF. Yeah. They really are. And that's all it is.
Yeah. But I must say, amongst all stupid holidays or events and stuff like that, gender reveals must be the absolute most moronic thing ever invented. It is by far the most stupid thing. By far.
Stream on how bad those are. Nobody cares, people. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Babies are made and born every day. It's not special. For you it is, but filming it and do all the puffy things and
yeah, I bought a bunch of heart-shaped donuts yesterday just to bring home, and my kids bought a bunch of leftover candies and chocolates and brought them to my mother. So that's the way we do it.
Yes.
I have a treehouse. I'm exempt from Valentine's. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, Dave's treehouse is no cooties allowed.
No ladies allowed. I got to get back up there. I got to move this whole operation back up there pretty soon.
Yeah.
My mom gives my kids gifts, but that's just because she wants an excuse to give them gifts. It's not like the only time she does it, though.
I'm starting to look more serious after what is going to become my role in studio.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. So I'm checking the auction sites and the used market and stuff like that to find something.
I want to know if Salvador's ever been in this courthouse, because this is a gigantic courtroom, and I want to know if all of them are this big.
Have you reviewed it?
Yes,
May I have it back?
sure.
Are there any indications there of the flirtatious aspect of their relationship?
Yes,
So that's included in there in terms of the issue of vulnerability as well as the photographs. And you've chosen to believe those because that's what you presented to us last Thursday, right?
based on context, Mr. Martinez.
Judge,
based
it's a
on-
yes or no question.
Next question.
We
This is
understand
really
that
even
it's
paying attention to
context-based,
this lady yet.
but you have chosen to believe that in this conversation, you have chosen to believe that they are being flirtatious with each other, right?
We're talking about boobs and libido
Ma'am,
and sex.
Judge,
and-
you've just not responded.
Sustained. Listen
Ma'am.
carefully to the question.
Yes,
You've chosen to believe that. You've also chosen to believe that.
Wait.
boobs and libido
Ma'am,
and sex.
Judge,
and-
you've just not responded.
Hang on a
Sister-
second.
Conversation.
I wanted
You have chosen to
to
believe that
do a clip.
they are being flirtatious with each other, right?
Nick, what do you talk about on your channel?
They're talking about boobs and libido
Ma'am,
and sex.
Judge,
and-
you've just not responded.
Sustained. Listen carefully to the question.
Yes,
You've chosen to believe that. You've also chosen to believe that she's anorexic, right?
she states that.
And you've also chosen to believe this thing about the photographs. Well, when you say that she states that, you've chosen to believe it, right? You told us about it just now, right?
There's quite a discussion about it in the email.
So is it yes, you did believe it?
Yes, I did believe it.
And so you've also,
Recovering anorexia.
and you've also chosen to believe this issue involving the photographs, right? That he asked for a photograph, correct?
Yes,
Right? You now know that, right?
I didn't see
We'll move
that.
on,
It was-
we'll move
Okay,
on.
okay.
And yet, when we come to the issue of the stalking, you have chosen not to believe Mr. Alexander when he says that
You
because of
believe
the
all
defendant's
women.
stalking behavior, he is extremely afraid of her. Chosen not to believe that.
Based on his behavior toward Miss Arias.
Sure, but you've chosen not to believe it, even though he's written it down.
He's written that he is afraid and he's,
Judge, you indicated that she shouldn't say what's in there, but
Can you answer the question to what is written on the page?
what is, okay, will you restate the question,
Sure.
Mr. Martinez?
you've chosen not to believe Mr. Alexander in this conversation, which may or may not be towards the middle or the end of May. You've chosen to believe, you've chosen not to believe Mr. Alexander that he was extremely afraid of the defendant because of her stalking behavior.
That's not the only reason I chose to believe it,
But
not, or to disbelieve it.
you chose not to disbelieve him, right?
And rephrase.
You chose not to believe him.
I guess you would say that I did choose not to believe it.
What I say doesn't matter. You chose not to believe him, correct?
Once again, because of other information, not simply because of this.
So the answer is yes. Is it?
Yes, with a qualifier.
Now, the other individuals that are involved in this case, for example.
Mr. Martinez, we're going to take the noon recess at this time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the designated area at 1:25. Please remember the admonition. You are excused. Have a nice lunch.
There's the wonderful sound of Hammer Media. Why is she so anti-men? I don't. But this is where it started with.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the
Why do you believe her over Travis Alexander? Because you believe all women. That's where I was so hoping that there was going to be something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if I would, this is why her area, this psychotherapy thing is so sketchy for me, because I wish they would have taken the gender sex out of it and just presented the text and then have her say which one of these are the abuser. I mean,
Right.
gender neutral, just a text between two people. Who is the abuser here? Just to test her theory about non-verbal violence, whatever's.
You got
Oh,
some
thank-
gifted membership.
Thank you, Liz Lane, for gifting memberships to Money G, Porcelain Thunder, Rare in the History, Keister Bunny, and D. Marie. Congratulations, you now have access to all my members-only content. And in excess of 60 hours, I think, of members-only content on my channel.
And he starts to put member content on my channel.
Yeah. Last time I had a members only stream. I streamed it to both me and Dave because I thought that Dave's new members deserve to get something of value.
Since I quit streaming, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And also
did you
link
read
to
the
my
names?
Discord. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, link to the Discord is in my community section on YouTube. Thank you
I
so
am
much.
confused. She
Elise.
doesn't believe he was afraid of Jodi, even though he wrote it with nothing to gain, yet believes Jodi, who has everything to gain. Yes, and didn't write it down too, Kim. She didn't write it down that she was afraid of him.
Yeah, no text, journal, email, recordings says anything about her being afraid of Travis. While
Yeah.
Travis, in text or email or whatever, has expressed actual fear for Jodi Arias. And
Jury the
still
defendant and all
she
counts.
believes Jodi.
Yep.
And the
Yeah,
only reason I can see that is because she talked to Jodi and she believed Jodi.
Well, she believes all women. She believes all women. Remember, that's the starting point here.
Yeah. And it's not only Jodi, because she, this psychotherapist, she's done books prior to ever talking to Jodi Arias. I mean, she had books back in late 1990s. So this is her believe all women predates her meetings with Jodi Arias. So talk about confirmation bias.
Yeah, no, it would be good to identify or to take away the identifiers and then ask the questions
Mm.
and then see if the answers correlate.
Mm.
I doubt they do.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Martinez, you may continue. Yes.
Jodi Arias can only imitate emotions, in my opinion.
Yeah, she can only act them out. And she's a better actress than Amber Turd is, though.
Yep.
Who
I
can't
need to
actually have any real emotion either.
I need to fill up my cup of coffee. Incidentally, you can order it on my merch store.
There you go.
Yeah.
link in the YouTube channel, I imagine.
Yes, in my
This
description.
continues with cross-examination.
Sorry.
Yeah, in the description below this stream is a link to my merch shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, before Mr. Martinez continues with cross-examination, one of the jurors requested
A sanity break.
April 22nd as a date when we would not have court because of a previous commitment. I've spoken with the attorneys and we have agreed that we will not have court on April 22nd to accommodate the juror. All right? Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
And we were talking about some of the conversations that you passed judgment on. Specifically, we talked about the one involving Reagan. We talked about the one involving Shatanya Lay. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, there were other people that read either instant messages or text messages, and you made some judgments on them. For example, Denise, you
I want to ask Jung what the definition of a psychopath is. I believe it's not necessarily having emotions, but not being able to empathize with others.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
is the
It's
psychopath part.
a complete inability to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
For instance, I had this discussion yesterday with Andrew Branca because we both have some experience with high-functioning psychopaths. And for instance, if you were to tell a joke in a setting with lots of people, the psychopath will laugh because other people laugh because it's funny. If you told the joke to the psychopath one-on-one without anybody around, they would not understand it's a joke.
See, what if you can empathize with people, but you don't care? Jung, I need the definition for that.
Yeah, we know psychopath or neither is sociopath. Nowadays, it is traits. I think it's in the latest DSM-5. They are starting to use traits instead of actual diagnosis, if I remember correctly.
Psychopaths, all their friends live in other states.
Well,
There you go.
we live in different countries.
There you go.
Made some judgments based on what you read about her, correct?
Yes,
And specifically, you also indicated with that one that she was vulnerable and that there was some flirtation that was going on between the two of them, right?
I'm not sure that I said she was vulnerable. I said most of the women were vulnerable.
Well, no, I'm asking specifically about Denise. Do you remember saying specifically that she was vulnerable? Yes or no?
I don't recall that I said that.
You
I may have said that, but I don't recall.
And you testified to that. You spoke about that. Do you remember that you spoke about it on Thursday?
Yes,
You just don't remember what you said.
I don't remember if I said she was vulnerable or that most of the women were vulnerable.
All right. But you may have said that she was vulnerable, right?
I may have said that.
And with regard to somebody named Nicole, again, you talked about being flirtatious and that sort of thing, right?
Yes.
Same thing with Michelle. You indicated that she was vulnerable. Do you remember saying that?
Who?
Michelle.
No.
You don't remember?
There was Chriselle, but not Michelle. There was not a Michelle.
So Chriselle, you do remember that she was vulnerable, right?
Michelle.
Correct.
And basically what you're telling us is that after all these people, you're able to make these judgments without ever having spoken to a single one of them, right?
I've gone on the context of what they've said repeatedly in their
Did she analyze
conversations with Mr.
Cruella?
Alexander.
So is that you haven't spoken to any of them, correct?
I have not spoken to any of them.
And yet you reached an opinion, correct?
Yes, I did.
And this opinion was based on writings, correct?
Yes, it was.
In fact, that's something like ask the question involving Snow White when you indicated that there was a question as to whether or not she was a woman who was being battered or whatever the term was. Do you remember that we talked about it?
I'm not sure I'm not understanding what you mean in terms of the
Do you remember?
correlation.
Do you remember that you presented on whether or not Snow White was a battered woman? Do you remember that?
I didn't present on whether she was a battered woman. I presented about gender, and Snow White was the character I used.
But your title did indicate that, right?
My title, as I've said numerous times, was a catchy title.
Right. In other words, it was not the truth. Is not what you're telling us, right?
I'm telling you that it was
Sir.
a catchy title that embodied the speech I gave, which was about gender and power. And the jury might have to see the entire speech to get the context, Mr. Martinez.
I'm just asking whether or not that was the title, right?
That was the title.
And now you're telling us that
Here
this
we go
title
again
that
about
you helped
Freaking
craft,
Snow White
right?
thing.
Yes, I did.
I hope
That
we
this
left
title
that
really-
thought long ago, but here we
John.
go again.
The entire Tuesday stream, we were literally litigating over Snow White. You got to go back and watch it. You'll love it.
It was not what you presented on, right?
It was a part of looking at gender and the impact of gender on domestic violence as well, and the impact of what people learn about their gender in regard to domestic violence. So if you take it out of context, you can make it look any way you want to, but if you look at the context, it would make perfect sense to you.
Well, I'm looking at in context. Did you address
Sure, Dan.
whether or not in that presentation, Snow White was a victim of being a battered woman?
I talked about her gender and growing up.
So you didn't, is what you're telling me.
Once again, you need to look at the context, Mr. Martinez, and you want me to take things out of context, and I think that's an unfair representation, frankly.
Well, you were there, correct? At the presentation?
I was not only there, it was enjoyed by many people.
I'm not asking you whether it was enjoyed by many people, did I? Did I?
No, you did not.
I'm asking you whether or not you were there. You were there, correct?
I presented it.
And you picked the title, right?
I picked the title along with the people who thought it was a great title.
I'm just asking, so what you seem to be indicating is that you don't want to take responsibility for picking the title.
Okay,
Was it?
I'll take
hold on, excuse me.
responsibility. I will happily
Excuse
take
me.
responsibility.
Excuse me. Did you pick the title? Yes or no?
I picked it, yes.
And you were there, you picked the title, you presented. My question to you is, in that presentation, did you make a decision or did you reach a conclusion or did you even address whether or not Snow White was a battered woman? Yes or no?
I addressed the issue of people growing up being trained
So the answer
like
is
Snow
no.
White, that they could go into abusive relationships, and why would we would expect them to be one way or the other. But once again, it's the context, Mr. Martinez, and you want me to say something that really doesn't characterize
Judge,
what I
she's being
did.
non-responsive.
Sustained. Let's
So, ma'am,
question, don't volunteer information.
All right,
so, and you made that presentation, or you were there at that presentation, and you were the person that was presenting, even though you never spoke to anybody involved in the Snow White tale, correct?
Objection, relevant regulation, foundation.
Overruled, you may answer.
I didn't speak to the Seven Dwarfs or Snow White. I'm not sure who. I
Yes,
could've
that's the
spoken-
question. Did you speak to anybody involved with this fantastical tale?
I think that answer would be quite obvious, that I couldn't speak to Snow White, nor could I speak to the Seven Dwarfs.
So would that be no then?
Okay, that would be no.
And just like the people here, Denise, Nicole, Lisa, Deanna, Michelle, Reagan, Shatanya, and Maria, I'm sorry, Chriselle, Reagan, Shatanya, and Maria, you didn't speak to them either, right?
No, I did not.
And it's the same sort of analysis that you applied to Snow White as you did to the writings of these individuals, right?
Okay, for
That
everyone.
was that was where he was headed.
Yep.
Okay, that was where he was headed. That's a good one.
I just want to point out, everyone who's saying that this woman is so insufferable, I'm gonna dig on Jung a little bit, because we were talking about psychopaths and sociopaths, and she says, I don't think those terms are used in the DSM at all. They're not clinical terms, so honestly, I don't know what the definition of. And then, Mads comes out with, I think it's called antisocial personality disorder, and then Jung is like, yes, it is. So you do know, Jung, after a series of
Oh.
questions, we're finally to get there, that you do know what it is, and it is contemplated in the DSM. It's just called something different. All right, Jung, the woman on the stand right now.
Oh.
Just wanted to point out some consistencies with those in the mental health field. That's all.
No.
Don't
Well, you
scare
used
my
your
audience away,
brain.
Dave. I'm still streaming, you know.
Oh, okay. But Jung runs my Discord. She knows.
Yeah.
She knows me. I want to call her out.
In terms of, and although it may seem obvious, you didn't use the exhibit number 558, right?
I
Because
said
you
I
said
used that in part.
So you did use that in part in your presentation
I said that, yes.
involving Snow White, then, right?
Oh, no, not involving Snow White. That was
And-
not part of the presentation, Snow White.
And involving Denise, Nicole, Lisa, and all the other women, you didn't use this exhibit 558 either, did you?
I used the framework.
And again, the framework comes from your mind, right?
Actually, it comes from reading other people who opine on a subject, who have lots of experience, and my own 35 years, almost 35 years of experience.
Didn't you tell us that when you were making an assessment in this case, that it actually came from your brain, that you actually didn't have to consult this exhibit 558 in making the assessment in this case?
It came from my trained brain.
It came from your thought process, right?
It came from my trained brain.
Right. You thought about it, right?
I thought about it and used other materials
Right.
to.
But one of the materials that you didn't use was this exhibit 558, right?
Objection, Ms. Chair.
Overruled, you may answer.
I'm confused about
All
what
right,
you're asking
then.
me.
In your assessment in this case, you just told us that you used your trained brain, right?
Yes,
That trained brain incorporated 558, right?
correct.
What you're telling us is that you didn't look at it specifically, right? You just thought about it, right?
I probably looked at it too, but I mean, I've looked at it over time, so I'm not sure. It's in my head. When I discussed it with a jury, I discussed it from my head, not from the paper in particular.
But of course, you did use the paper when you were discussing it though, right?
I rarely looked at it because I know it.
So the answer is yes, you did use the paper.
I used the paper.
And man, one of the things that when we're talking about this,
Objection, Judge. Part of the last part of our answer was overspoken. We didn't get the rest of it.
Yes, you may complete your answer if you did not.
That I had it up there, but that I know it well enough that I can discuss it without having to continually refer to it.
it's the same thing though, whether or not you have it up there on the screen or have it in your brain, it's the same thing. It's the same guide, correct?
Yes,
And with regard to this guide that you have in your brain, for example, this is, in assessing these cases, you do have this continuum, and you have your experiences, right? When you're assessing a case, right?
I have the total context of what I'm looking at, yes.
I'm not asking that. What I'm asking is what you bring to the table, not what the table has there to provide you.
All right,
In other words, you bring your education, right?
yes,
You bring this continuum, right?
yes,
And you bring your experience, right?
with both victims and perpetrators, right?
So the answer is yes, you do bring your experience, correct?
Yes,
And even though you bring all of that to the table, there is no standard that we can point to, for example, up on the screen or on a piece of paper that we can say, this expert found, based on this particular standard, found something. Your standard is not written anywhere, correct?
untrue. My standard is published and it's being used by attorneys. It's being used by 730 evaluators. It's being used, it's published in Canada because they thought it was useful. It's published in 2 books by 2 different authors.
So is this part of your standard, Exhibit 558?
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, that's been used by other people.
That's your standard though, right? Is this your standard, 558, that you go by?
I don't go by one standard. This is one tool that I
Right.
use, but I'm not sure what you mean as a standard, Mr. Martinez.
Your approach to these cases is subjective, isn't it? It's what
gonna call
you believe.
McKinley. That's the one thing from a legal standpoint. Her testimony was not helpful enough with regard to Jodi to warrant this amount of cross-examination. I agree
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah, I mean, all the points he's made, he could have done in maybe an hour or 2, tops.
We had the same issue with a lot of more modern trials that we've been watching, where the cross goes on and on. It should be short, little stick and jab, stick and move sort of jabs that that get your point across, and then you move on. You don't dwell on it, because the more you dwell on it, the more important it makes the testimony look, right?
Yeah.
And so if this guy's got to
Yeah.
cross-examine her
Yeah.
for,
Go
I think he
in,
does the rest of his
discredit,
day.
go in, discredit, make them say something, move along. Don't allow them to explain themselves. Just boom, boom, boom. Thank you and goodbye.
Like the first day, the day that we streamed on Tuesday, that was great cross-examination, because he went into the whole Snow White thing, completely discredited her, and then I would have just moved on. I would have been done with her. None of this is necessary, unless he's building to a really good point that I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
I try to make it as objective as I can by using evidence, Mr. Martinez.
I understand that you tried, but it's still a subjective sort of approach, isn't it?
Probably not any more subjective than any investigation with a police officer or anybody else. You take the evidence that you have and you weigh that evidence based on a lot of things. And so I don't think there's anybody who has a purely objective view.
Actual
And
evidence,
so I would say,
evaluation and collection.
Which she's comparing the one and the same. Her conversation with Jodi is all the evidence she needs to determine that Jodi is in the right here.
Yeah. And she believes Jodi when she writes stuff. She believes Travis when he writes certain things, but not other things. When he says he's afraid, no, that's not true, because he's a man.
Nick, McKinley, do you guys know someone else who has a hard time just saying yes or no and needs to give context? Fanny?
Oh, yeah.
That's all I was just...
Yeah, I know.
You're
She
thinking
can't
of what
say
I
yes.
watched.
I mean, here's the thing. When you go in as an expert, as a psychotherapist, of course, she can't say solid yes or no, because it's all subjective.
Yeah.
That's kind of all of it. Yes, it is my subjective opinion based on my experience and training and this and that and this and that. But yeah,
It's just really frustrating.
yeah.
By the way, you can skip for a super chat. We're cross-examining her for the rest of this day. Oh my God. Wait, are we? Who's on the... Oh, I think they're... Oh, I don't know. We might be done with her today.
that if you're a police officer, you bring that to the table. If you're
Tongue is
an attorney,
not
you
right.
bring that to the table, your view to the table. And so, yes, in that way, I'm bringing my view to the table.
So you're saying that your approach is the same as DNA evidence, now that you're talking about police. Same certainty applies to your opinion as it does to DNA evidence?
No, I'm not saying that.
It doesn't, does it? Because that has a standard, an objective standard that people can go out and retest if they wanted to, right?
There's decomposition in DNA standards.
Are you an expert in DNA, Nick?
No, but I've read.
Right, but you're not an expert, right?
No, I'm not.
So in terms of a sample that's not biodegraded, and you have all of the loci that match, if we're going to talk about that, and those, you get a profile, correct?
Me or DNA?
She just said she's not an expert in DNA.
Overruled.
In a DNA test, you get a profile, don't you?
I don't know.
So then why, if you don't know about this test, do you want to now tell us about a biodegradable substance?
I'm only saying what I've heard in trials.
Right, but you are not, in a sense, telling us that,
And there is a profile, there is I don't know enough to be an expert, but I know enough to know something, and probably people who watch CSI know enough to say something.
the
Oh.
issue that I'm presenting, or the question that I'm presenting to you is, isn't it
Is she
true
referring to
that
the
your
CSI
appro-
effect?
I'm sorry.
As- What? She
Say
just-
that again.
People know about people know about DNA by watching CSI. That's stupid because yeah, you might know about some terms, but you don't know if your knowledge about DNA is solely from CSI, you don't know shit.
This is where the DNA, the CSI effect really started coming
Yeah.
into play. Like 10, we used to, I mean, they taught it as an issue that we needed to address when I was going through law school. So yeah, she's just, I have no idea what to say about her comment other than it shows her ignorance, I suppose.
Yeah.
does not have the certainty that would allow an independent individual, somebody else, to go back and start the investigation again and reach the same results that you would, right?
I don't know.
Well, is it like a DNA test, your approach?
No, it isn't.
Is it like a blood test, your approach?
No, it isn't.
And your approach, is it even a little lower than that? You are familiar with what psychologists do, right?
Are you talking about testing?
No, I'm just familiar. Are you familiar with what they do? What kind of work they do?
Psychologists?
Yes.
Well, I specifically, and what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the field of forensics. You're here as a forensics expert, aren't you?
I'm here as a domestic violence expert.
Well, but forensic means that you present it in court. You
I
understand that, right?
I know that,
Right.
but there are a lot of psychologists who don't present in court.
I understand that, but I'm asking you if you're familiar generally with the job that a psychologist does.
Approach.
By the way, yes, after this, you will all be redirected to Salvador. Never before seen Mark Jensen content. Salvador's he hasn't shown me what he's got coming up, but he was talking about it, and it should be fairly interesting. I'm going to see what he does with that content.
Yeah.
So we'll all be redirected there after this.
Yeah, same over to my channel. You will be directed to Sal because if thinking about all the crazy stuff from the Mark Jensen trial, and all of a sudden there's never before seen that he had dug up.
May continue.
Are you familiar with what psychologists do in the forensic field?
Much of what they do involves testing.
So you are familiar with what they do, correct?
I'll be right back.
I think the difference between what they do and what I do is testing primarily.
And what you do basically, ma'am, is you sit and you talk to people, right? Because you don't test, correct?
Correct.
And you read things, correct?
I do.
And in fact, one could say that you are a counselor, correct?
I'm a psychotherapist, yes.
But basically what we're really talking about when we break it down is that you're a counselor, right?
I'm a psychotherapist by profession, Mr. Martinez.
And you don't do any testing, right?
No, I don't.
So that we could go out and take a look at your raw data or whatever answers were provided so that somebody else could examine it, right?
Correct.
All we have to rely on with you is what you tell us is your interpretation of what you've read and what you've heard, correct?
That would be true. And in addition to that, I would just say that testing is somewhat subjective too. And it is, when you look at testing, the caveat with testing is this should not be used to stand alone. This should be used in conjunction with the things that you're talking about that I do, if it's used.
But you don't do any testing, do you?
No, I don't.
You're not an expert in testing, are you?
No.
So what you just told us now, in a sense, is you haven't had the schooling that would allow you to make the statements as it applies to these tests, right?
I work with people who do the tests and we work in conjunction. And so we go over testing together. But do I do testing? No, I don't do testing.
And that's left for others that have a higher degree than you, correct?
Sure.
And when you are evaluating a case, you have to, not you have to, but what you do is basically, as we said before, you sit down and you hear what people have to say, and you look at what they've written, and in a sense, you have to make a call as to whether or not you are going to believe the written word or believe the spoken word, correct?
No, that's not true.
I had to
Well,
go get the rest of my
I
paint.
can believe both or not believe both. I turn down cases where I
Judge,
find
not
it.
responsive. Ma'am, I'm asking you in terms of your analysis, isn't it true that to further your analysis, you're acting as a gatekeeper in the sense that you choose to believe something or you choose to disbelieve something depending on what you think?
No, depending on the evidence, Mr. Martinez.
I agree that you have items in front of you, but you would agree with me that others may see something differently than you, correct?
That's possible, sure.
So that, for example, if you choose to believe somebody, somebody else may choose to disbelieve them, right?
If I choose to believe somebody, that somebody else could disbelieve it. Yes, that's
Correct.
possible.
So that's the type of approach that you used in this case, right?
I like this
I
attack.
gathered evidence, Mr. Martinez. I don't know what to
It's not
say. I took a
repeatable.
lot of evidence. I read a lot of materials. I did a lot of interviewing. I read a lot of collateral sources. And that's how I came up with a decision that I came to even testify in this case.
Can we agree now that you did read a lot, that you talked to one person, and that you then came to your conclusion? We can agree to that, all right? Given that, isn't it true that even though you have all of that, isn't it true that it's still what your opinion is that cannot be verified that we are talking about today?
That cannot be verified.
Correct. We cannot, for example, go in and input it into a computer and get a result, right?
I have no idea. I'm not good with computers. I don't know when you put, I mean, FBI's people profile, and they have a lot of information and they put it together and they create a profile that you can agree with or not agree with.
You
But
pull up.
that profile is inputted into a computer and they look at it and they look at, and there's a lot of information that is looked at in terms of domestic violence where people have taken data and put it together. So I'm just not exactly sure where you want me to go with this, but this is, for me, the truth of it.
Ma'am, with regard to profilers, do you know whether or not bad evidence is admissible in court? Yes or no?
No, I don't.
So you're giving us an example of somebody that is giving an opinion, right? The profiler is giving an opinion, correct?
Correct.
And that opinion is used sometimes by law enforcement, right?
Yes,
And that opinion can be wrong and it can be right depending on the profiler, right?
correct.
And it can be wrong 100% of the time because it depends on what the person that is profiling is thinking, right?
I don't think it's just a matter of what they're thinking. I think it's their experience. I think it's what they're reviewing. I think it's a lot of things.
Sure, but you can't input what their information is into a computer and come up with a name, for example, of the person who committed the crime, right? If you're a profiler.
If you're a profiler, you might be able to come up with a collection. I don't know, Mr. Martinez, this is really not my expertise. I'm just simply saying that there's groups of people that put information together and they get things out on a computer. I'm not one of those people because I'm not a computer whiz.
With regard to whether or not you're a computer whiz or not, even if you were a computer whiz, there is no way that your approach would fit a computer, would it? There's no way to put it into a computer and come up with a verified.
See, this is the problem with all of this. When I ran into the problem, with Jennifer Crumbley, with the expert that they wanted to use, is that you can run statistics all you want and say on average this or that, but a person is not a statistic. And so you still can't predict what a person is going to do. You still can't say, well, therefore this is the truth.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental problem with using any mental health professional in any legal proceeding whatsoever, is that it's not a scientifically reliable result.
It's an opinion that, a psychologist's opinion can be challenged by another psychologist. She's a psychotherapist. She doesn't do testing that can be individually challenged. because it's all her subjective opinion based on what she has in front of her.
Yeah. But even if everything that she has in front of her is 100% accurate, again, it's still a subjective test that can't be repeated. Like he was saying, if you give all this information to someone else in her field, they might come up with a different opinion.
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
Yeah. And as we said earlier, if you had conversations between 5 people in different context and removed all name and gender and put that in front of her, it would be really, really interesting to see who she would decide were the abuser, if it was any at all. Because I can almost guarantee you could find text messages between a man and a woman where she ultimately was found in a court to be a violent abuser, or vice versa, which has no trace of anything, which seems like normal conversations. And also, in my family, we are extremely sarcastic. I don't want to show people the kind of text messages we send each other. And definitely somebody would construe that without talking to us as, oh, this is abusive. I mean,
yeah, you can't put a person in jail for likely to commit a crime. Exactly. Otherwise, we'd all be in prison.
But you can't put somebody in prison for not being able to predict the future.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
Viable result, right?
Overruled. Me
Let me finish my pancake,
I
Joan, and
really
I'll get
don't
back
know.
to you.
And with regard to the profiler, it is true that you're the one that brought that up as an example, correct?
Yes, I did.
Ma'am, one of the things that you keep talking to me about is context. You always, or in the morning, you talk to me about context, right?
Correct.
And you've indicated that it's really important in determining whether or not you are going to make an assessment one way or the other, right?
Correct.
And we have exhibit number 444, which is a series of text messages. And this involves an individual by the name of Michelle K. and Mr. Alexander wanting to know about this information that this Michelle K. may have provided to the defendant, right?
Yes.
It's exhibit number 444. Right?
The text messages are dated.
Judge, it's improper. Her objection's improper. If she doesn't understand, that's the problem, not her.
May we approach?
You may approach.
Yeah. But I mean, now he's just beating a dead horse, and he's been doing it for half a day. It's time to move on.
Yeah, I would say at least half a day.
Because
it's today. The first day wasn't so bad.
Yeah, but this day, and one of the things that you always risk if you keep beating it is all of a sudden people have sympathy for her.
Yeah. I
Now
don't know. I'm not gaining a lot of sympathy.
Not her, maybe, but similar context. If you try to beat down on a witness and then keep beating and beating and beating and beating, you might be correct, but you might be construed by a jury as an ass. And yeah,
right. They're perfect for each other. It's like him and Jodi.
Yes, but the name is incorrect.
I understand that you say the name is incorrect. All I'm asking you, man, is whether or not you remember talking to us about this text message. Yes or no?
Yes.
And the date on it, it's halfway down, is April 7th of 2008. You see that?
Yes.
And you're saying, well, the name there is incorrect, right?
Yes.
And you're talking.
We got a 2-minute skip. Nice. Thank you very much. And you can super chat for a skip forward. I gave you an extra minute since you were the first one today to do it. And welcome.
Yay! Yeah. Thank you
very much for the super chat.
You did write it down, and it is part of your notes, correct?
Yes.
And you try to be as accurate as you possibly can with your notes, don't you?
Yes.
And if something strikes you, that's when you write it down, correct?
If it's something I have a question about.
Or even if you don't have a question about it, it's something that you write down, right?
Yes.
If it's important enough to you, right? So you say, take a look at the context of this. The context of this is that the defendant is working at what restaurant again?
I believe it's Ruby Tuesdays, but I'm not certain about where she worked, and that
Ruby
is not
Tuesday.
as significant as lots of things.
She's working at this restaurant, and while working at this restaurant, some individual who supposedly knows both of them comes in and gives her this story about Mr. Alexander, right?
Correct.
And in your view, who was that individual, man?
A woman by the name of Maria.
Maria what?
I have no idea.
Maria
Did you ask?
Sanchez.
Marie.
Maria Sanchez, Russian trained and Spanish speaking, right?
No, her last name was not significant to me.
So, well, we do have Maria written down here, or no, we have Michelle and Elena, but you believe it, those are both wrong, right?
No, I don't know anything about Elena.
So if the defendant told Mr. Alexander that it was Michelle or Elena, after talking to the defendant, you have a different name, right?
The name Marie.
Right. So you would agree then that we have 3 potentially different names that were given to Mr. Alexander.
Overall answer.
I don't think Marie was given to him because I think he said Michelle here.
Well-
But I don't know.
Well, but if the name of Marie was given, then it is true then that the name Michelle, if that's the name that she gave Mr. Alexander, which indicates that she did, that would be a lie, correct?
No.
Oh, so
Could be,
Marie,
I'm not sure what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that it could be a mistake that he wrote Michelle down and it could have been Marie. I don't know.
and that illustrates the problem with just reading, correct? Because you don't know what's going on when the person is writing,
I
right?
think he is lost.
This is not the only thing I look at, Mr.
I
Martinez.
understand that, but I'm asking you a direct question. Isn't it true that you've just given us an example of why you don't just rely on writing, right?
I don't even know how to
I
answer the
think
question.
that I rely, if I have a preponderance of writing that is consistent, I can rely on that writing, especially when I don't have other things. I can't interview Mr. Alexander, although I read what he wrote about his life and I read some things in his journal and I read an email from his sister. So I really tried to look not only at Ms. Arias's perspective, but also at the perspective or the things that Mr. Alexander wrote that I had opportunity to read.
Are you done with your answer?
Yes, I am.
Now answer my question. Haven't you just illustrated for us one of the flaws in just relying on what somebody has written?
That was rough.
That a name can be different?
Ooh.
No, that people can write something by mistake. You were imputing.
Could you imagine Fanny being hit with that question? Are you done with your answer? Okay, good. Now answer my question.
I need to save that one for future negotiation.
Right.
I need to save that one.
That's gonna
If
be
I
so
really
good.
want to piss off the person in front of me, that's exactly how to do it.
That was good. That's sharp. I'm gonna file that one away. Got a couple trials coming up.
That mistake to Mr. Alexander, weren't you?
One of them made a mistake.
Well, no, ma'am. Didn't you just say to me earlier, oh, well, Mr. Alexander could have made a mistake,
I
right?
said he could have.
Right. So the mistake, if there is one, according to you, it was Mr. Alexander's. It wasn't the defendant's, right?
No, I said he could have made a mistake.
Right. You never,
I don't know if her name was Maria or Marie or Michelle, but the name of somebody is not nearly as important to me as the rest of it. I don't know why that name is so important to you, frankly.
ma'am, would you admonish the witness?
Play what again? The woman. I'm not gonna go back. It's like I don't know. It's
Yeah,
30.
she did a thorough answer, and Mr. Martinez said, "Are you done with your answer?" Yes, I am. Good. Can you now answer the question I was asking?
Yeah, it was such a brutal.
Oh,
question.
I mean, boom.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Responses like that, what made me?
No volunteer information. May continue.
Ma'am, my question to you is not about the names. It's just illustrative. My question to you is, isn't it true that just relying on the written word is a situation, as you've illustrated, that could create mistakes, right?
If you only rely on one written word.
Even if you rely on 200 different items, isn't it true that mistakes can be made in the writing, correct?
Yes,
And you just illustrated it for us right here when you told us well, this could be a mistake. And why did you choose to place the blame or the mistake on Mr. Alexander rather than on the defendant? Why did you choose to do it on that way? Why did you choose to make him the person that made the mistake?
I didn't choose to make him. I said it could have been. I didn't focus on this as some key issue, the name of the person that I needed to focus on, Mr. Martinez.
My question to you is, why didn't you say that it could have been the defendant that gave him a lie, gave him the wrong name?
Objection is handwriting testimony.
Sustained.
Why didn't you tell us? You didn't tell us that it was the defendant that could have given him that name, did you?
Same objection.
Overruled. Let me answer yes or no.
What?
I could say that to you now if you like.
Ma'am, Judge, it's just not being responsive. If you could please admonish her.
Overruled. Ask another question.
Ma'am, it appears just from that exchange that you have a bias here, don't you? You have a bias in favor of the defendant and against Mr. Alexander just by this minor example, don't you?
No, I don't.
You immediately, your fallback position here wasn't the defendant lied. Your fallback position was Mr. Alexander made a mistake, could have made a mistake, right?
My decision is not based on this I am, Mr. Martinez. You mischaracterize what I say, and I'm going to repeat what I say.
Did I mischaracterize your statement when you said that that Mr. Alexander could have made a mistake? Did I mischaracterize?
I did say that. Yes, I did.
And ma'am, you're familiar with, at least in your reading, with somebody by the name of Matthew McCartney, right?
Yes, I am.
And you're familiar how it was that the defendant found out that Mr. McCartney may be involved with another individual, right?
I don't know how she found out, but I do know that she found out.
Are you familiar with somebody by the name of Bianca in this story?
Yes.
In terms of Bianca, do you know how it was that the defendant came to know about Bianca and what she did in response to that?
I don't know how she found out about Bianca, but I know that what she did in response to that.
Well, isn't it true? I'm asking you whether or not you know this, but the defendant happened to be working at another fast food place, not a fast food place, another restaurant, this one called Applebee's. And while she was working at Applebee's, two girls came in.
Applebee's on a date
Said.
night.
Approach.
Applebee's. Crapplebee's is what they call it around here. Every once in a while when I want a nice steak and shrimp, I go to Crapplebee's and it's like $15. You can handle it. But it's not the finest of restaurants.
Oh, speaking of that, I need to find out. It's a new year, and if some new restaurant has opened up that haven't, I can't order. I can only order takeout, but not to have it driven to me. But once in a while, a restaurant forgets to remove my address from one of their. Don't drive here because it's so far out, and I get two pizzas or a menu or something for $3. What it was called, drive out or whatever, which is one. A few years back, it was so funny because he came here with bicycle, and not even by car.
Nice.
He was not happy, but I gave him a big tip.
I was going to say, you better tip him well.
Yeah, I tipped him well. But I mean, that was so, yeah.
Everyone who wants a Dr. Jung YouTube channel, put a 1 in the chat right now, no matter what chat you're on. If you want a Dr. Jung YouTube channel where Jung will go and analyze people's characteristics, like Dr. G, but a Dr. Jung version of it. Everyone needs to put a 1 in the chat.
Mm.
Look at that, Jung. See, there's high demand. You need to get your
That
YouTube
name
channel
might
together.
have been taken because there's
please take a look at this.
Young.
This is
You have the Young school, and you have the other dude, the cocaine guy school.
Oh, I'm
of
going to create a
psychology.
channel right now. I'm going to preserve it. It's going to be Dr. Jung, and I will I will transfer ownership over to Jung as soon as he's ready to get it up and running, which should be a few short days from now.
the defendant's testimony of February 5, 2013. Just read it to yourself, and once you're done reading it, let me know. Man, what's the exhibit on there? 600? What? So,
2 weeks, she says. 2 weeks.
601.
so
I don't have the first answer. I don't
please
have a
read
question.
it. Please read it. Just please read it.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not that quick-witted, though, Porcelain Thunder. There would be a lot of opportunities to be quick-witted. She did have some jabs early on in her cross-examination where she went back. It's like, are you angry at me? You seem angry at me. Why would you be angry at me? Kind of jabs back to the prosecutor, but she's since then sort of settled down. 2 weeks is way too long, Jung. It needs to be quicker than that. Is she reading the Applebee's menu? What's going on? I missed what she's going over. Is Jodi drawing? She's drawing. Oh my God, I need that. Is that part of the court file? She's sketching out pictures. Is she sketching the witness on the stand? I am talking about you, Jung. 2 weeks. You said 2 weeks to get your YouTube channel up and running. That's too long. Look, the wins are still filing in, Jung.
And while she was working at Applebee's, it seems that 2 women came up to her, correct?
Yes.
And these 2 women told her that Matt McCartney was dating somebody else named Bianca, correct?
Correct.
And as a result of that, she then went and did whatever it was that she did, correct?
Yes.
Doesn't it seem straight? Well, doesn't it raise a red flag to you? Well, let me do it this way. The defendant has had 4 significant relationships, correct?
Correct.
One of them is Bobby Juarez, correct?
Yes.
Matthew McCartney,
Correct.
Daryl Brewer,
Yes.
and Travis Alexander, right?
Yes.
Doesn't it raise a red flag to you that in 50% of those, 2 of the 4, somebody would come in, a female would come in to the place where the defendant was working and tell her about her boyfriend being unfaithful?
Objection, Judge, with regard to the prior testimony of Ms. Arias. Can we approach with the transcript, please?
Yes.
Jung, you currently have a link to this very stream right now in your Discord. So no excuses. Wait a minute, I can't get it there. I got to find it. I thought I was going to have it sent by the time that sentence was done. All right, now you got a link in your Discord, Jung. I'm not streaming very often anymore, so you need to take advantage of when I am streaming. In the middle of what? Middle of your pancakes? You can get on.
People come up to her and tell her that her boyfriend is cheating on her. Does that raise a red flag for you?
It's the first I've heard about the other.
I understand this may be the first time you've heard of it, but we're talking context, right?
So I'd need to think about it and I need to get clarification on it.
And it also illustrates the point that your opinion, whatever it may be in this case, is incomplete, right?
Not my opinion about domestic violence.
Well, you are not receiving the full information. In other words, you spoke to the defendant for 44 hours, right?
Yes.
Let's go with a $4.99 super chat. First of all, that gets us 5 minutes fast forward. And I believe this question is more for you, Nick. You did have a list of shots and things that need to be taken care of still.
We have 4 slots left, and it is 1 sour, 1 whiskey, 1 vodka, and a hot sauce. So we cleared all but 4. So we cleared 16 slots on my wheel of regrets.
What do I need to purchase tonight? Just send me a list for my shopping list so I can go purchase the right things for my Lego stream so that I can finish up the shots on behalf of Nicholas this evening during the Lego stream. You said vodka and what else?
Vodka, sour, as in candy sour, and
can I do lemon, like lemon juice? Is that good for sour?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You can mix 50-50 vodka and lemon juice. Sour, whiskey, and tequila. Sorry,
Tequila.
I had one
Oh,
tequila. left.
tequila's good. I'll do tequila. Okay, vodka.
No,
tequila, whiskey.
no. This tequila, red hat tequila.
Why I gotta get red hat tequila? Okay. All right. Well, you send me the shopping list.
Yeah,
I'll get that along with my Michelob Ultra to watch my figure, for tonight.
Oh.
You don't know if it's the
Oh,
truth,
and by the way, Brandon, there's no rewinding. You missed that part earlier.
do you?
Which is the
What
truth?
we're talking about, that some people came to see the defendant while she was working. You don't know if that's the truth. That's what you're telling me right now, right?
I don't know. I don't know that what Miss Arias told me is the truth. Is that what you're saying?
Right, in terms of the Appleby story. You don't know if that's the truth, do you?
No, I don't.
Same thing with regard to the Ruby Tuesday story. You don't know if that's the truth either, do you?
No.
So if we're then talking about context and we're talking about this anger that we see from Mr. Alexander, he's the one that's been having this relationship with the defendant, right?
Yes.
And if this individual, this defendant, starts doing things just like we taught, what we've seen here, this minor example, about saying things like this, then this text message might indicate that he's probably justified in questioning her in this manner when she's,
Restate your question.
ma'am, you can't tell us that Mr. Alexander was out of line given the context that we just talked about here.
Oh,
Does the red hat tequila have worm at the bottom?
the only person I see who
Nope.
has a history of lying so far is Mr. Alexander.
they have
I
something
haven't
that
seen that
expensive
in
at
her
all?
history.
Sorry, what'd you say?
This is
I gotta
like
find red hat tequila.
It's like a $12 tequila.
Okay. That sounds worse than what I normally drink as far as tequila. I love tequila. I'm gonna do a little tequila sunrise. All right. Anyways, this woman was saying just now, the only lying she observed was from Travis. That's what her testimony just was. That's amazing to me. That she wants to go on record with that. He's no longer alive, ma'am.
Prior. So I mean, you're asking me to say, could he be justified in a hypothetical that hasn't fit with what I've read? Yes, he could be justified. And what I've read in terms of lying, I don't get that Miss Arias with prior boyfriends has lied.
With regard to this abuse, you indicated that this text message is one of the things that you considered in making your determination that Mr. Alexander was abusive to the defendant, right?
Could you
Sure,
put that up?
sure.
That I said that this was one of the things that indicated that he was abusive?
So that you consider in making your determination that Mr. Alexander was abusive. Exhibit number 444. This is something you considered, right?
That was something I read.
Well, reading and considering are two different things. Is this something that you considered in making your opinion or reaching your opinion that Mr. Alexander was abusive?
It wasn't a major thing I considered. It was something I considered for sure.
Right. And so if, for example, Mr. Alexander, hypothetically speaking, if he's the one that wants to know about this person that may have come in, and in light of the context that I have provided you, it doesn't seem that his conduct in asking her details about this individual is so out of line, is it?
It doesn't look like he,
Approach, please.
Oh god. There's so many sidebars with this witness.
Yeah.
The last witness, I think it was worse as far as the sidebars, but he was so boring in between. This one's at least talking about fantasies.
Hypothetically speaking, in this particular case, Mr. Alexander is saying,
would you mind? Oh, thank you.
I'm going to do it.
Okay, thank you.
He's saying, you insult me by thinking I'll believe such crap. And the crap that he's talking about is somebody coming into Ruby Tuesdays and telling the defendant something about him and
All
another
these
woman, right?
generic chain
Would you
restaurants.
put that up on the screen again, please?
Objection for speculation as to what Mr. Alexander specifically meant when he's wording something here.
The standard.
Well, ma'am, look at the top. And do you remember testifying about this the other day?
Yes,
And do you remember testifying the other day that this had to do with somebody coming over to the defendant's work and telling her about Mr. Alexander dating Lisa Anders? Do you remember you told us that?
yes,
You had no misunderstanding then about what this was about, right?
correct,
This is one continuous text message, right?
correct,
So it's dealing with the same subject, correct?
correct.
And so when he says, you insult me by thinking I'll believe such crap. I already know you're lying, so why continue? He's questioning this story of somebody coming over to her workplace and telling her about Lisa Andrews, right?
Objection, speculation, especially, may we approach?
May approach.
Okay.
So are there any rules about the shots? Can I mix it with something like, can I do a tequila sunrise? Because I love grapefruit juice. We do a
You
little,
have to talk to Brandon about that.
oh, well, then I'm just going to assume it's a yes.
Oh, but you can stipulate it to you do it because Brandon bought the entire wheel and then it was up to everybody else to donate to SAC. So you can have it stipulated that donation to SAC. I mean, once every $250 or something like that.
How long have we been doing Jodi? Too long. Too long.
Since
No,
May.
This is since
Yeah.
May. It's almost been a year. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Oh.
Oh.
It's been fun.
And
Though.
my
It's been fun.
yeah, my birthday is in the beginning of May, so that will be an interesting Saturday stream.
Oh, look at that. Brandon says definitely grapefruit juice. Awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, I'm gonna be ooh, you know, I don't even need to buy beer at this point. I'm just gonna be doing some tequila sunrise with some grapefruit juice, and then I'll do some lemon drops, and I got some hot sauce that I have to do apparently. I know I'm not a big fan of hot sauce. My son just got a bunch for Christmas, so maybe he'll recommend one. It'll be the hottest one that he recommends, I'm sure.
I would assume so.
That's going to be painful. So stay tuned for that tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here, and also on Valhalla Awaits channel, but also right here.
Maybe Valhalla can help you.
Oh, yeah.
444. And in light of your previous testimony, what is your understanding that Mr. Alexander is talking about when he says, you insult me by thinking I'll believe such crap? I already know you're lying, so why continue? What is your understanding that he's talking about?
That he doesn't believe her
About what?
about the information regarding the woman who comes in to talk. But part of what I considered and the context I considered it in
Judge
was that
Nash,
she
you
had
haven't spoken
also,
the question.
right,
She has a hard time not answering the questions. Valhalla wants to know
Yeah.
what he's helping with. You are helping me finish up the Wheel of Regrets from Nick's stream last night. Brandon paid for it all, and so we're going to tag team the rest of it since Nick fell short. So we have vodka, whiskey, tequila, and hot sauce, right? Oh, and sour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so-
sent over the link to where you can create the Wheel of Regrets with
awesome.
with those 4 slots.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
going to
Or more
yes.
if you choose to. You can do more if you choose to.
The reason why we're doing it, Valhalla, is because we have Solomon Anderson on our stream tonight building Legos, and this is part of a Zachariah Anderson fundraiser. So I have tequila and hot sauce. I have hot sauce, but not tequila. I'm gonna get some tequila and vodka. Do I have whiskey? I don't think I have whiskey. Anyways, this is all part of a Zachariah Anderson fundraiser. So we'll take over, I guess, or at least I will. Maybe we can have Wendy do some shots. Wendy H will be on with us too.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. everyone go check that out.
Wendy in control over the entire stream while taking shots. I would pay to watch. I would actually pay to watch that happen. I don't think it will happen, but it will be interesting.
You know what? It doesn't even have to be. If you do a shot glass full of Tabasco, I'm pretty sure it's going to be something spectacular.
Well, I did a teaspoon of habanero sauce, Moruga scorpion sauce, and
No, it's a
Swedish
shot
wild
glass.
sauce.
It's a shot glass full. It's not a teaspoon.
Proceed.
Okay, so ma'am, now that he's saying that, and in light of what you know now about the Applebee's encounter, This is the one in California. Remember that one?
Yes.
Involving Matt McCartney. Wouldn't it seem to you, or wouldn't it raise a flag to you about the defendant's veracity or truthfulness that this same story is being told with regard to two separate men that she's dating?
I would check this story out.
But you didn't in this case, did you? Before you came in and gave us your opinion.
I didn't know about the Appleby story.
Right, and that means that your assessment is incomplete, right?
No, it doesn't.
What?
Ma'am, the other text messages,
And by the way, in that text
yes,
message,
there is no.
Right.
Ma'am, in exhibit number 448, there's an issue involving a text message that was inadvertently sent by the defendant. That was meant for somebody else, and Mr. Alexander actually received it, right?
Just
Correct.
do an
And in this
accidental
one, he
on
gets
purpose
upset about it, right?
text.
right,
And he calls it a Steve cover-up. Isn't that what he calls it? You see that there?
yes,
And if you want to see the date, it's there. It's, we know that the times are off. It's May 10th of 2008, right?
What is it?
448. You see that?
yes.
Now, with regard to this particular set of text messages, what is your understanding about whether or not the defendant sent the second text message that Mr. Alexander is requesting?
I'm not sure
You
what
know,
you're referring to.
everyone's saying like this guy, he's cross-examining too much. I think this is the first time this has really been used in courtroom. And remember, we know how this case ends up, right?
Mm.
But he doesn't. And he might think he needs to cross-examine her a lot more.
No. Apparently,
Have you
she
been-
has been testifying about this before, but not in a public setting. And that I'm not sure, but I do believe so far she's been testifying in personal abuse cases.
Yeah.
I can't find her doing, when I Googled her name, murder trials, I couldn't find anything but this one. And I might assume, since she failed so miserable in this one, nobody used her again in murder cases.
Well, it might be. Remind me the year of this trial. So this is in 2013.
2013.
Right now, we're in like March of 2013-ish, somewhere right there.
Yeah.
So it started in December of 2012 and then carried over. So we're approximately March of 2013 right now. Which puts us on a good timeline for the whole Me Too movement sort of thing, stepping off and the believe all women and violences or words are violence and all that stuff. The stuff, Jung talks about in the chat.
You remember you testified about this, right?
I testified about what was said, the way things are said in this.
Just
As opposed
whether or not
to-
she remembers testifying about it or anything else.
Sustained. Can you answer yes or no?
I can answer yes with a qualifier.
All right, next question.
All right. And in fact, this was provided to you to review as part of your testimony when you
Can you
Even the
answer
judge-
yes or no? I can answer yes with a qualifier. All right, next question. Judge got the yes, right?
Yeah.
and you testified to it, right?
Yes,
So as we said here today, you've now testified about it. You know whether or not the defendant actually provided the second portion or the second text message that's associated with the first one.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Allow me to read the rest of it.
I understand that. All right, I'll let you take a look at it and then we'll talk about it, okay?
Okay.
He just paces around. He's going to wear out that floor. Somebody said that before, but I really think he's going to.
Mm-hmm.
My dog is sleeping by my feet. Let's see. Yes, remember, after this, we're going over to Salvador Dali's Mark Jensen trial with new evidence never before seen. He just got this from the court last week.
This will be amazing. And later today, the US time, I will do this Serial Killer Saturday, but I don't want to miss this episode of the Mark Jensen thingy.
Yes. And then tonight at 9 p.m., Valhalla awaits myself, along with Wendy H. and Solomon Anderson. We'll be building Legos and maybe raising some money and apparently doing some shots for the Zachariah Anderson Fund. So don't forget that as well. We've got your entire day covered for you people. Just bounce from one thing to the next to the next. Where is... I'm trying to find... There it is, Salvador's stream. He hasn't started yet. Okay. He'll be starting shortly. I'm going to put a link in the chat just in case redirect doesn't work. This is for Salvador's stream because we'll be ending shortly. You guys can click over there and hit the notification just in case the redirect doesn't work. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Sometimes it works. One time we did this 3 streams in a row, and it was almost perfectly 50% redirect to the next one, and then 50% of those were redirected to the next one. So it was, you gave me like 100 viewers, and then I passed it on, and it was only 50 out of those 100 who got the redirect. So this is a YouTube thing. Maybe it's a control thing that we are not supposed
Doesn't appear
to
that she did.
make that
And if you
decision
didn't
for
provide
YouTube.
the second-
Yes.
Yeah, it's really sorry. I was trying to get to the stream. Yeah, it's really weird. Every time we redirect, we lose like half the audience. So click if you don't automatically go over, click the link, and then you can head over there now, or not now, but when we're done, which should be a few minutes. And is Baker apparently is doing something. I don't know. I thought he was earlier today, but
portion of the text message, it appears that she's standing up for herself, right? He's not going to push her into providing the second part of the text message, right?
I didn't testify to that.
Baker is
I'm
doing
asking
the
you,
late
isn't it true
damage.
that since he couldn't get her
yes,
to provide the second text message, that means she's able to stand up to him, right?
I don't know.
Well, at least on this occasion, since she didn't provide it, she stood up to him, didn't she?
Mo, Baker,
She placated
and,
him throughout that.
I understand that you're using the word
sorry.
Mo is later today. Baker and Sal at the same time. Yeah, I mean we are all friends in that, but I mean we have always redirected to Sal unless one of us is doing something.
Yeah, the normal routine is Baker goes and then he redirects to Flux, and then Flux goes and then she redirects to us, and then we go. And then we, So apparently Baker's going late today, but you have time to catch
placated, but isn't it true that another word for placate in this circumstance is she stood up to him and didn't do it, right?
She didn't do it,
That means she stood up to him, right?
That's a good question, Moni.
I guess.
Well, you're the expert. Isn't that a step in
I think
standing
she's
up to
still
somebody?
up
When
until
they
the
say to you,
verdict,
the
I
supposed
believe
abuser says to you,
she
I want this,
get away with it.
and doesn't do it. That's standing up to him, isn't it? Even if they're going to incur their wrath.
Does Jody
She
think
incurred
she's
a lot
getting
of
off?
wrath in that.
Does Jody think she's getting off? That's the new poll. I like the way I put it. It wasn't intentional. I'm doing that.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you about how much wrath she incurred. Isn't it true that she stood up to him?
It appears that she stood up to him.
And in fact, do you know whether or not there is, take a look at, this is the first text message. You see that, the one at the top? Hey there, someone has my Google password because he's helping me with some things on my Google blog. Unfortunately, he happens to be an ex-boyfriend. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not she actually provided another text message associated with this first text message?
To whom?
To Mr. Alexander.
No, I don't.
And in fact, hypothetically speaking, had she failed to not only provide this, but made another one up, wouldn't that be significant to you, hypothetically speaking?
Approach.
Is stabbing and shooting standing up to verbal abuse? I don't know. We were wondering if it was nonverbal communications, though. Nonverbal violence. If stabbing was nonverbal violence. I believe it is.
Yeah.
And sent it out to Mr. Alexander, representing that it was this one. Would that be of significance to you?
I have no evidence of that hypothetical, Mr. Martinez.
Ma'am, we do. She
That's
testified.
why
to
it's a hypothetical.
Objection. She didn't hear her testimony.
I didn't hear the
Say
testimony.
why I consider contraband.
it. Did that make a difference to you if she had said it?
What made a difference to me, Mr. Martinez, was the reaction to whatever happened, the overreaction to whatever happened, the names that were called. That was when I took this, that's what I looked at. Not that he didn't have a right to be angry if there was a misunderstanding. Not that there wasn't a right for him to be angry, but the way he handles his anger was what I was looking at, Mr. Martinez.
My question to you, ma'am, would it make any difference to you that the defendant lied by creating another text message and representing it as being this one? Would that be significant to you?
Line.
That was saying, rephrase.
Would it be significant to you, ma'am, if the defendant sent another text message instead of this one and represented it as being this one?
Oh.
Sent an additional, I'm not sure what you're saying. Sent an addition, something other than this? Or-
Yes, and represented that it was this one that she had sent, and instead sent another one that she typed, or whatever it is that text message do, and sent that one and said, hey, this is the one that I actually sent. In other words, she created another one and held it out to be this one. Would that be significant to you?
Significant in terms of the big picture of domestic violence, or significant how?
Significant in the fact
Oh
that she's
my God,
lying,
answer
because she's
the question.
misrepresenting something.
Objection is for mischaracterization of the line. That was not her testimony.
Overruled, you may answer.
If she was lying,
Yes,
if I saw a pattern of her lying, it would be upsetting, and I would look at that pattern of lying. When I'm looking at her patterns here, Mr. Martinez, and I haven't seen the patterns in anything that I've read or anything that I've reviewed. So that's what I can tell you.
but for example,
Okay, we're done with that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for like a coherent answer, and we're not going to
Yeah.
get one.
No.
So that's our day 42 part 1. We're definitely gonna have a part 2. We have we have like an hour left. So actually Tuesday will be a good day to finish up day 42. So we'll have an hour left. Remember, every Saturday and every Tuesday at noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time. On Tuesdays, usually about an hour. On Saturdays, we go for 2 hours. And here we are. We have so many more streams left. What you grab? I thought you were taking a shot already.
No, no, I don't do shots 2 days in a row. I mean, when I was in my 20s and 30s, maybe 2 parties in a row, but no, not now.
I've been looking, Vicky. I've been looking for some interviews of hers that we could stream. There's a bunch of pretrial stuff, but it might be copyright claims, so I've been looking at cleaning them up a little bit. And I did stumble into her post trial interview, and that one is horrible. I think I know the one you're talking about. But yeah, we're going to cover some interviews, and we're going to try to conduct our own interviews, maybe with this lady. That would be awesome. As well as with some of the attorneys involved and everything else. Her former attorney is on Court TV a lot. So he's been given some interviews and commentary on other cases. So hopefully he'd be willing to come on and talk with us. We'll love you too, Money. I've decided I don't think YouTube hasn't come back yet with my dispute on my video yet. So I don't want to play it and get the whole stream demonetized for no reason. So, but I did put up a video of it's called Shut Up Fanny on my YouTube channel. You guys want to go watch it over there? Because right now it's temporarily monetized, but YouTube's reviewing it for copyright claims. I won't play it here. We'll just leave it with the traditional exit video.
Okay. But let's see here. You got the super chats. I got the gifted memberships. How are we on likes?
That's a good question. I have 60.
I think I have 61 or 62.
Damn it. That means you win. Nick wins again. He's always winning these. Well, you got the membership. I got the super chat, and you got the likes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. One of these days.
One of these days, people will like you more than me.
All I want is to win on the likes, and that's the one I always lose on. But that's okay. All right. Thanks, guys, for sticking around with us. Remember, okay, so Nick, what time tonight, Nick?
I haven't set it up yet, but depends a bit on when Sal ends his. I will set it up for maybe, well, what time is it now over at your place? 2
It
p.m.?
is 2 o'clock, 2 p.m.
Yeah, maybe around 5 p.m. your time.
Okay. And
That
then
gives
at
the
9
Sal
p.m.
3 hours for his.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I will see you guys over at Salvador's. And then remember at 9 o'clock, we will be doing Lego's Law, Life and Libation with Valhalla Awaits, myself, Wendy H., and Solomon Anderson. So we'll see you guys then. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder.